This happened to me in my freshman year of college. Tinder was new, and everyone at my university was on the app. I joined to see what all the fuss was about. Looking through profiles, I found a few guys out there that were really interesting, and this one guy in particular caught my eye. We will call him Walter for the sake of this story. I swiped right on Walter and we matched. I was excited and kind of giddy because he was super attractive. He messages me and I got butterflies in my stomach. We message on the app for maybe an hour. Typical conversation is happening. I asked him what he does for a living. He asked me what my major was. Harmless conversation. After a while, he asked for my number so we could text instead of message on the app. I gave it to him. He seemed nice enough. We messaged back and forth for a few days. Lots of flirty conversation and plans to hang out finally occurred. By the 4th day of conversation, he started calling me babe, which gave me mixed feelings. It was cute, but it was a little weird. We didn't really know each other and had never met. I ignored it and continued on with the conversation. He started saying he wanted to be exclusive and he really wanted to see me in person. He was begging me at this point to come to his apartment to cuddle and watch movies with him and his dog. I told him that our first meet needed to be in public. I would not be going to some stranger's apartment. He said I was overreacting and kept begging. I ignored him for the rest of the night. The next day he apologized and said that he understood and we needed to meet in public, so we made plans for that weekend. The weekend came faster than expected and it was the day we were supposed to meet. Something just felt off and I decided to back out. I texted him apologizing, saying my mom wasn't feeling well and needed me to come and help her with some house chores. This made him annoyed, and he said, "Your mom is a big girl. If she needs, she can call you. You can come over and you can leave whenever you go to help her. I really want to see and kiss you." I told him no, that I would be staying with my mom that weekend, and that was that. I only live about 30 minutes from home, so I actually did go home to see my mom that day. After what he said about her, I started ignoring him, and the texts started rolling in. Text after text. "Babe, I'm sorry, please come over. Babe, I miss you. Are you going to come over?" I planned on replying the next day that I was just busy with my mom, but then he started calling me. I had a total of 45 missed phone calls within a 2-hour period. He left voicemails saying he was sorry and he just missed me and wanted me to call him back. Similar voicemails continued almost the entire time I was home. My roommate texted me shortly after I finished dinner with my mom and asked if we could go out that night. I agreed and went back to my university dorm. Suddenly, the calls from Walter started to increase again. More texts, voicemails, and he even started messaging me on Tinder again, asking why I wasn't replying to him. I wasn't planning on replying until I got a message on Instagram that said, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming back to town tonight?" Getting this message really freaked me out. I replied to him and said, "Sorry, I've been busy with my mom. How did you know I was back in town?" He said, "Well, I checked your Tinder, of course. Tinder doesn't tell exact locations, but it has a within a certain amount of miles message." This really freaked me out, and I messaged him back saying that he was being really creepy. He seriously had to be constantly refreshing my profile to see the distance change. The messages, calls, and voicemails continued. All were him now apologizing for making me feel weird about him knowing where I was. He was just worried about me. We had been texting for less than a full week. I told my roommate about it, and we decided to stay in that night. The last straw for me was getting a message saying, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm outside your dorm with flowers and chocolates. Please forgive me." I called campus security and told them about this guy, and they never found anyone waiting outside of any doors. I'm assuming he was in his car waiting for me to reply. I blocked him on all socials, phone number, deleted Tinder, and never have been on back since. I have seen him once out and about in town, but he never recognized me, thankfully. Walter, if you ever hear this, I'm glad we never met. Thanks for making me second guess every single guy I find attractive. I was 21, recently became a police officer, and was also recently dumped. So my friend suggested Tinder. As a 21-year-old new cop, I had the I'm invincible and can take on anyone mentality. I matched with a very good-looking, out-of-my-league female. We chatted and eventually set up a date to meet. She said she had a great open field to look at stars and hang out, and we could meet up at her house. So the night came. I was excited, and she seemed to be excited when I picked her up. She guided me to the field, and it looked nice. Open space, woods, deer, and other wildlife. In the field, I noticed really dim headlights in the distance. Then, this van started driving towards us and pulled up in front of us, almost close enough to block me from going forward. I told her to stay in the car and I'll go see what's up. I grabbed my flashlight I had in the car and walked up. In the front driver's side of the van, there was a very decently sized man. I asked him what was going on and asked if he could back up a little. He was very polite, said he was the owner of the property, and said that he didn't mean to scare us. He told me he's been having trouble with poachers on his property and just wanted to make sure we weren't going to be shooting at anything. I assured him we only came out to look at some stars and wildlife. He was perfectly okay with that, told me to have a nice date, and drove away. After that, this girl started texting non-stop. Around an hour later, I saw headlights coming towards us again, this time at a really fast pace. We hopped in the car and I moved to a more defensive position. The same man came close enough to almost hit my car. She hopped out of the car at that point and ran towards the guy. I immediately knew that I was screwed. I got out and gave them commands to back up and get on the ground. Neither of them complied, obviously. He then proceeded to charge me and knock me to the ground. Luckily, I was able to get him on his back and get up. I saw my date grab a metal pipe from the van. She told me they had a gun and to give them my money and my truck, and I won't get hurt. Of course, with my I'm invincible mentality, I said no. She started to cry and saying that they didn't want to hurt me. He then started going back towards his car. At that point, I told him I was a cop, drew my concealed firearm, and to lay on the ground. After a moment of shock from all of us, they complied. I was able to call 911, tell them my name and badge number. I had two at gunpoint and needed backup immediately. I gave our dispatcher the best directions I could to this field, but while on the phone, they both fled. Again, stupid new cop young guy mentality, I chased them. I took off after the man who ran into the woods around the field. I chased him for maybe 30 seconds and heard 3 loud pops and saw muzzle flash. My invincible mentality went right out the window. I ran like hell back towards my car and peeled the hell out of there. I went back to the area I picked her up in, called dispatch again, and had officers come to that location. Of course, the first officers to pull up were my sergeant and my field training officer. Of course, they were both completely understanding and didn't give me any crap about it at all. The most used words were dumbass and stupid rookie. I hopped in their car and we went towards the field. Luckily, the van was still there. I was told to shut my mouth and only come out if they started getting shot at. They cleared the area and started looking in the van. They found meth right on the center console and searched the rest of the car. What scared me the most was when my field training officer and sergeant came back to the patrol car, let me out, and told me to come look in the back of the van. Both of them were pale, looked horrified. I went to the back of the van where there were several knives, duct tape, lighter fluids, a decent amount of rifle ammunition, handcuffs, and what looked to be dried blood. In the front seat passenger side, we found an AR-15 style rifle and 2 more handguns. We called for immediate backup and detectives. When they investigated the blood, it turned out it wasn't blood after all. The plates had been stolen and the van was reported stolen as well. I still get crap about that whole encounter, but luckily no one got hurt. I will never use online dating ever again. This encounter happened to me around February 2016. I had recently gone through a hard breakup with my girlfriend of 5 years and I was in a pretty large rut because of it. Unfortunately, I am the kind of person who likes to numb the pain of a heartbreak with two things, this being booze and loose women. I know that sounds really stupid, and well, that's because it is. At this time, I lived alone and worked 4 10-hour shifts a week, so my weekends were always 3 days long. I used these long weekends at that time to use Tinder and Craigslist to find someone to hook up with for a couple of days and maybe get drunk with. I used these two platforms to basically at least find one hookup each weekend, but this particular hookup was the last time I ever used Tinder. I was on my break at work, and per usual, I was swiping away at my phone trying to find my weekend fix. After a few minutes, I found a girl named Melanie who was exactly my type. I right-swiped, and Tinder had given me the notification that Melanie had also right-swiped my profile. The familiar chat box opened up, and I typed "hey" in the chat box and sent it. I got a response from her pretty quickly. She responded quite bluntly with, "Wanna hook up?" I was kind of shocked by this. Most girls have at least a somewhat decent conversation with me before our true motives come out. Thinking nothing of it really, I responded with when and where. She said to just meet up at the bandroom closet at the IPFW campus in Fort Wayne at 8. This at the time was just the sort of stuff I was into, so I agreed. Saturday eventually came around as it always does, and I was ready to get my weekend started. I pulled up in the IPFW parking lot around 7:45 and had myself a quick smoke before I made my way to the bandroom. After finishing my cigarettes, I started walking. Eventually, I got to the music hall and walked into the bandroom. It was dark in the room, and the only light was from the windows of the door behind me. As I let the doors behind me close, I called out to Melanie, hoping to get a response. As the words left my mouth, I heard a knocking coming from inside one of the storage closets. I quickly walked up to the closets, opened the door, and got inside. The closet was pitch black at this point, and I could not see a thing. I stretched my hands out in front of me, trying to find Melanie in the closet. And what happened next was probably the most frightening thing that ever happened to me. Suddenly, I felt two long arms grab and pull me in. I could tell by the way the arms and hands felt when they touched me that this was not a woman, but a man. He pulled me close to his chest. This only confirmed what I thought. The chest was firm and squared. I was still in shock at what was happening to me currently, so I was unable to move. This gave the creep the opportunity to lick the side of my face. A shot of cold went down my spine as his slimy tongue went from my cheek to my temple. I then heard his voice through his heavy breathing. "You taste good," he said in a low, creepy tone. Finally, my adrenaline kicked in, and I doubled up my fist and swung as hard as I could towards the general direction of his head. I felt my fist connect right with his jaw. At that very moment, his grip was gone, and he fell to the floor of the closet. I didn't waste any more time, and I darted out of the closet as soon as I was free. I dashed out of the bandroom and out of the music hall. I was sprinting to my car as fast as I could, and I made it eventually. I shoved my keys in the ignition, put it in drive, and stomped on the gas pedal. When I knew I was far enough away from that freak, I let up on the gas. I drove home to my apartment that night and called my friend Isabella and told her everything. She drove over to my apartment and spent the night at my place. For once in a long time, I had a girl over and didn't quote-unquote sleep with her. I think I learned my lesson.